Hey everybody, today we're going to be looking at one of my all-time favorite molds, the Dynamic Discs Escape. If you know anything about the Escape, it is one of Dynamic's first 4 releases as a manufacturer. They released the Judge, the Fugitive, the Escape, their Fairway, and the Trespass, all in December of 2012. This is one of the first discs I fell in love with that they released. I threw it 3 times. You're going to see similar throws here. This is actually my second ever Escape. The first one is lost in a snowbank in Minnesota. But before I get rambling, we're going to talk about some different plastics here. You're going to see a lot of throws. So we are going to talk about like pre-Swedens. We're going to talk about the most recent Metal Flake run. We got hybrids. We got Lucid X. We got a BioFusion in there. So we're going to get video of that and conversation about them. I just want to do a deeper dive on the Escape, and my son is going to help me out. He's going to introduce a couple. What's this one?
And this is Lucid X.
There you go. Oh, I was on the wrong side. He was in that shot the whole time. That's Lucid X. Yep, we're going to talk about that too. So, hope you enjoy. As always, if you have questions or comments, please put them below and I'll get back to you. Otherwise, enjoy the video. Thanks. Alright, so let's look at a few different runs and plastics of the Escape, starting with the pre-Swedens. Now, if you don't know what pre-Sweden means on a Dynamic Discs mold, it's pretty easy to explain, and once I show you, it'll be easy to identify. On any Dynamic disc, you're going to find on the bottom a crown with dynamicdiscs.com underneath it. I believe mid-2014, somewhere in that time frame, they also started adding made in Sweden. So any dynamic disc that doesn't have made in Sweden in it is considered pre-Sweden. There's only a handful of molds that are like that, so if you find one that says doesn't have made in Sweden in it, it does have added value, just collector value, and sometimes flight differences. The reason these are sought after is because they are very true to those initial flight numbers, 9, 6, -0.5, and 2. They are a very straight disc, very controllable. They're sought after for that. Later runs, after the change, the disc does become more understable. You're going to see a flippier version of the Escape. It's much better, well, I shouldn't say much better, more of a hyzer flip disc and turnover disc, and you're going to see that in the video as well. There are runs that are still more true to the original releases, and there's a way to show that. I'll try to demonstrate it, but it's tough to show on video. BioFusion is a regrind of Lucid and Fusion combined. Out of the box, these actually fly very true to the original releases, but they do tend to, in general, I shouldn't say always, but they also beat in really fast, so I love them for rollers because I can just beat them in real quick, and they also become really good beginner giveaway discs as well. These white hybrid came along in 2017. As soon as I threw them, I messaged a couple of friends, said, hey, get your hands on these. This really brought back the flight of the initial first runs, but actually maybe even a little more aggressive. These do beat in a little bit quicker than Lucid, but when they do beat in, they beat into that perfect straight flight, so pretty nice. Lucid X, if you've had any experience with Lucid X or OptoX or VIPX, you know a lot of the molds are more overstable. This is not an exception to that rule. This definitely follows that. This white one is almost getaway overstable. You're also going to see the orange one. Sweet flights. And Lucid X plastic, if you don't know, tends to be a little bit stiffer, so the dome is a little bit harder, and you'll get to see those fly. And then Metal Flake. A lot of the runs recently, I've noticed Metal Flake tends to be a little more overstable, so I wanted to include it. And you'll also get to see the new flight numbers. 9, 5, -1, 2, and you could even argue maybe even a little more understable than that, but that's quibbling over that. So Metal Flake, I didn't see a ton of difference from more modern releases. I think it has a lot more to do with how firm the shoulder is and how stiff the dome of the disc is, as opposed to the metal flaking. But Metal Flake, Lucid X, Hybrid, BioFusion, made in Sweden and pre-Sweden discs. Let's go test them out so you can see them fly. As I mentioned in the intro, the Escape really was the first of the 4 from the initial release that I fell in love with, and it's because it only took 3 throws. I threw a big turnover, that Anheuser release line like this, and it came back to center. I threw a big hyzer, even better angle on it than this shot, but again, faded right back to center, giving me what I was looking for. And then I threw it flat, just a nice straight throw. As you can see here, following the sideline on the soccer field, it really does hold a nice line. Now it is going to fade out some at the end, but that's well within the realms of where I want that disc to end up. Alright, so with the Escape, one of my favorite things to do with it is this. Just start it a little bit on the left, give it some turnover, and let it fly straight and land flat. It's a very controllable disc. Here you can see me cutting between the first and second nets, trying to fade back to the third net about 350 feet away. And here on a big turnover, downhill, just getting around the corner and fading back to the basket. So let's talk about the Made in Sweden Escapes. You're going to see on the first couple of throws, with that little bit of left to right turn that I like to put on an escape, they're just going to hold that turn a lot longer. Again, this one, you're going to see the direct comparison, but you see me throwing those pre-Sweden escapes on that slight turn, but these are just going to hold that turn almost all the way to the ground. But that adds another dimension to my escape game, so I actually really like having these as a complement. It allows me to throw these turnover shots like that. So here's a 70% power shot. Down a tunnel, around the corner, I don't have to worry about the shot at all. It's in a nice safe landing zone. Gives me a nice understable complement. Here again, you can just see me throwing a big turnover, not having to worry about it fluffing out. This disc is going to hold that line for me. And here is that promised comparison of the two discs. You're going to see the pre-Sweden is going to get turned hard, and it's going to hold that line for a while, but if you watch it, it does fade out a bit at the end, whereas the Made in Sweden likes to hold all the way to the ground of the turn. Quick look at BioFusion. This is a terrible throw, but this is also a disc I'd started beating in. 4 rollers, and you're going to see that in just a second. You can see the glide, you can see the understability, and you can see I'm snapping it down hard, but it does want to get to the ground and run, and it's going to score.
This is my favorite hybrid, and I like throw it 100 times.
By the time I got my hands on a hybrid escape, I kind of relegated the mold to just a straight to understable slot in my bag. As you saw with the Made in Swedens, they were hyzer flipping, they were big turnovers, but they weren't as reliable for a straight shot with fade. Getting the hybrid back in my bag, reminiscent of the old pre-Sweden flights that you're going to see on the next 2 shots, with maybe even a little more aggressive fade, was a really big bonus for me. So if you're looking for something just with a little more bite than the Lucids you've been experiencing, hybrid might be a good option. Be aware they do beat in a little bit faster, but they beat into a very straight disc still.
Hi everybody, this is Lucid X, and it flies and it does that.
If you have any experience with Lucid, Opto, or VIPX molds of discs, you'll know that they tend to add a little bit of stability to the mold, and Escape definitely fits in that category of more stability. Here you can see that turn shot that I like to throw with an Escape, actually with more turn than I usually throw, and still an aggressive fade at the end. And here's going to be a lower line drive version of it with a lot of snap, and this disc is still going to be able to fight out a little bit. Comparison to hybrid, it's going to start a little more right, but you'll be able to see just how fast the wing of the disc tilts down, so you're more aggressive fade with the Lucid X.
This is a metal flake escape, and ordinary white, and it flies and turns and rolls and does this.
I was pretty excited when I saw Metal Flake Escapes hit the DD site. I've had good luck in a couple other molds, especially EMAC Truths, getting a little bit extra stability on the discs with Metal Flake, so I definitely wanted to get my hands on some and test them out. First couple throws, what I realized was if I put full power on them, they would still turn, as most Made in Swedens do, but maybe not quite as much. And if I powered them down, they would mimic a pre-Sweden pretty well. As you can see there was more turn to that one than on the Made pre-Sweden. But here's an 80% power shot, and you can see actually a really good mimic of a pre-Sweden flight. So slowing them down actually seemed to do a lot of good. As I said, not quite as understable as some of the Made in Swedens I showed previously. Now the Made in Sweden shot was a more aggressive turnover, but you're going to see it just complete flip and turn, whereas the Metal Flake up top is going to fade out just a touch. So with the exception of Fluid and Fusion, that's a quick look at most of the plastics and different run varieties of the Escape. Depending on your arm speed, you should be able to find a version that will get you throwing straight shots down the middle of the fairway. If you're a slower arm, check out the Made in Swedens. Bigger arms might have to go up to hybrid or even Lucid X. If you liked this video or found it informative, please feel free to like it, share it, or even subscribe to the channel. As always, thanks for watching. Put those comments down below so I can get back to you.